What disgusting secrets does your employer keep from its customers? Story 1. I worked for a popular national pet store chain. We told our customers that we got our puppies from reputable breeders and not puppy mills. We got them from puppy mills, and I can't express how many came in on the back of a large, pitch-dark freight truck, malnourished, scared, and sick. We also adopted the cute kittens from the local shelter and charged customers outrageous amounts of money. Most of them just felt bad for the kittens. Don't support national chain pet stores that sell puppies that do not come from local shelters, folks. If you want a dog or cat, then please adopt. Or find a stray, take it to a vet and adopt him or her. Also, donate whatever you can to local shelters. Food, toys, beds, money, etc. They could really use it. Story 2. I worked overnight dairy at Walmart for a few years after I moved, had 7 years total with the company, and hated every minute of it. So in the dairy, we often get returns, stuff that has been left out in the store, and it's our job to put it back up. No thought is given to how long these things have been left out. They're put into a cart and wheeled into the cooler. Doesn't matter if a gallon of milk has been sitting out 5 minutes or 5 hours. It goes back into the cooler and probably back on the shelf. This is done in the name of expediency, which is what drives every policy at Walmart. Things don't get done right, they get done fast. So with milk, if a dairy employee finds it outside the cooler, it probably goes on a return pallet because we know better than to put room temp milk back in the cooler, and the store gets a refund on milk we send back to the milk company. Not so with regular employees who, as they are trained, put it in a basket, wheel it into a cooler, and hand it off to the next guy, who probably is getting grief from his manager to get this stuff back on the shelf. Eggs? Eggs come in with general freight. They don't do returns on eggs. Once again, if a dairy employee picks them up, they probably get ditched in the giant bin of milk, eggs, flour that sits outside the cooler and ferments and smells terrible, but at least it's a good 5 feet from the candy bins, so it's not like any cross-contamination is possible, and never see the shelf. However, same thing as the milk. It could be sitting out for a week. It'll get put on a cart and wheeled back to a cooler, and someone will yell at someone else until it gets put back on the shelf, because nobody likes getting yelled at. While working there, I came down with food poisoning on at least 3 occasions, none of which I was allowed to go home. I walked out on the 3rd after I puked in a mop bucket, told my manager about it, and then found out that mop water, which was probably a day old in the first place, was used to mop the cooler because nobody ever told the employee on duty to change the water. This is ignoring their terrible policies regarding how they treat employees and train management. Don't buy food at Walmart because it might be cheap, but you're getting what you pay for. Story 3. Using a throwaway. The company I worked for had to maintain a trust account where money owed to clients was kept and then they were paid out of it. There was a small lag of about 30 days between when the money came in and when it was sent to the client. This was a highly regulated industry. For more than 3 years, the company hadn't been paying their clients and had been fudging the books. I found this out when I was told to stop sending reports that showed clients were owed money. I pressed management and found out they had been lying to clients for well over 3 years, and one client was owed $1 million. I should also point out that in this particular industry, this client was in the top 3 in the nation. We're talking about thousands of companies owed tens of millions of dollars. I was instructed to lie to the clients until they were so fed up they threatened to sue the owners. Then they would get paid. This was common knowledge in the business. It was openly discussed with customer service. Until I filed a formal complaint with the regulatory agency, none of the more than 100 employees had ever reported them. Not one. And I know why, too. After I gave proof to the regulatory agency and quit, they swooped in and seized the company books, and all of my allegations were true. Instead of filing criminal charges against the executives involved, the regulatory agency just fined them and then made them pay back the missing money to the trust. No one was charged with a crime, no one lost their job, no one was put on probation. Absolutely nothing happened to those responsible, and the only consequence is that they have to have regular audits. Screw the government. Story 4. A small business owner for whom I worked several years ago kept deducting the employees' health insurance premiums but never sent the payments into the carrier. After 2 to 3 months of this, our insurance was canceled right before one lady's teenage son was in a fairly serious car accident. She finds out at the emergency room during what is of course an extremely stressful time that she has no insurance whatsoever when she and her dependents had been fully covered. The next day, she went into his office, very upset, to find out what happened. He gave his usual song and dance and made excuses for not having been able to send it in, and this normally mild-mannered lady picked up a stapler and threw it at him. He wasn't even injured. While doing that was of course unacceptable, I totally understand her frustration with this weasel. He spent thousands of dollars a month of company money coding it to company expenses at Sam's Club on groceries and big ticket items for his house, on top of his already generous salary. Then, to top it all off, he actually took her to court for the stapler throwing incident. After hearing the story, the judge dismissed the weasel's case and made a comment to the effect that if he were in the same position as her, he probably would have done the same thing. Story 5. Worked for a self-storage place in Rocklin, California. They made every customer sign a lease agreement that said that you wouldn't hold them responsible if your unit was broken into and things were stolen. I found out that we had 7 to 8 burglaries a year. The owners would get sued, but they would always get off because they'd produce the lease agreement in court, and the judge would dismiss the case. One day, I came in from vacation to pick up my paycheck, and I found the owner and the manager loading up a truck with the contents from a unit that wasn't theirs. I went around the corner to an area where the fence allowed me to look in, and saw that they went to another storage space, cut off the lock, and proceeded to load up the truck with a telescope, big screen TV, and some power tools. I came back the next day and asked one of my coworkers. He told me that the owners of the storage space would sell the stuff they stole from renters, and that the manager and owner did the same thing with another property that they owned in Granite Bay. I quit to go back to Sac State. I called the Rocklin cops to tell them what the owners were doing, and they said that there was nothing they could do unless they were caught in the act. Story 6. I worked at Best Buy, and I did my best to be nice to people. I spent time with people, got to know them, talked with them to make sure I got exactly what they needed, and nothing they don't. People loved me. They'd come back to me every so often with questions on their products. I was the reason they came back. Personally, I valued return customers more than just the one big sale. So what if I didn't land a $2,000 sale? At least they still trust us and are coming back again. Well, turns out the management didn't like my sales theory. Even though I was one of the highest selling people on the floor, they cut all my hours. They made me work inventory. I worked in PCs. They put me on register duty. They pushed me away in order for all the salespeople, who were robots and just wanted to land the big sales, could do their thing. I couldn't take it anymore, so I quit. Oh, side story. I was selling a PC to this poorer family. They wanted a cheap machine that only did Facebook and Word. So I hooked them up with a $300 laptop that did just that. I spent half an hour with them, and that was exactly what they needed. After the sale, my manager pulled me off to the side and ragged on me for not getting them to buy the $250 protection plan on it. What? Needless to say, I was more than excited to leave those doors for the last time. I still haven't shopped there ever since. Story 7. Private company I no longer work for. The company list of vehicles included 2 4-wheelers, a Corvette, a Hummer II, a brand new Jeep, and oh, right, a 20-foot fishing boat. Also frequently bought company furniture, which he would then sell to himself. Government contractor and a weasel. Edit. Okay, so this really took off, and I'd like to clarify a few things. If you have a small business and your cars are company cars and your office is in your home, power to you. Starting a business takes a lot of work. The main problem that I had with the guy was his general selfish nature and lack of respect for anyone. I can't go into details, but there were 2 big projects going on at the company at the same time. One under the government was defense-based, the other, which was an invention that he held the patents for, was aerospace. He used every trick in the book to siphon the government contract money into the private project so that he could reap the benefits, generally treated employees like dirt, and was just such an unbelievable jerk. I recently worked for another government contractor, and my boss there was nothing less than stellar. Story 8. I used to work at Frisch's as a hostess, busser, drive-thru attendant. That place was filthy and corrupt as hell. No one in the kitchen wore gloves, and the cooks loved making people eat old food that had been dropped on the disgusting floors. The manager loved to steal the waitress's tips and blame the customers, or the sketchy-looking bussers. The most corrupt thing the awful manager did while I was there was around Christmas time. He would take $100 out of each of the new, younger employees' cash drawer, call your parents saying that their kids stole the money and they needed to be brought in to be questioned. When I went to work the next day, I found out the same garbage happened to a few of the others. We all got so mad and snagged the key that locked the box to the camera controls, rewinded to the following day, and watched until we saw the loser start doing his thing. Every single one of us reported his ass. He got insta-fired. It was glorious. Story 9. I wouldn't say this is disgusting as such, but I have been working at a dry cleaner's place for a couple of months now, and the lady that runs this place is heavily into voodoo, black magic, or something along those lines. I don't understand it because I'm scared to quiz her. Unfortunately, what the customers don't know about this place is that the owner is actively assessing the customers at all times in terms of first impressions, perceived health, well-being, spiritual makeup, karma, or whatever. I really don't know the full extent to what she is doing. Anyway, once they've given the clothes over to her, she performs incredibly elaborate rituals with the clothing in order to affect the lives of her customers. I have heard extremely unsettling noises coming from the back room during these past few months, and I've glanced several unrecognizable objects in there. I have only recently gathered the courage to stand up close to the door when I know that it is going down out back, and I'm fairly certain she is actively trying to break up someone's marriage with her chance, though to her credit, I have heard her speak of fixing wounds. About 3 weeks ago, I heard her just laughing for about 15 minutes at the end of a session. She came out covered in sweat. It's a really interesting job. Story 10. I worked for a Highline jeweler a while back. I heard of a competitor who had a series of questionable robberies. I knew they were crunched for cash due to the market tanking. This is 2008, 2009. They opened a new store and they sent a lot of gold and platinum jewelry to that store rather than buying new merch. Gold and platinum were at $2,000 an ounce. So they have a robbery occur. The thieves come in, smash every case, steal everything except Rolex. Rolex has the serial numbers engraved at 6 o'clock on the dial. It was the only vendor whose merchandise could be traced. This is what makes me think it was an inside job. Either the thieves knew they could be traced, or the merchandise would have been over the total policy. Same company later had a snatch and grab at another store where two older, without serials more than likely, unsaleable gold Rolexes with diamonds were stolen. Jewelers Mutual pays replacement cost. Unsure if current price or at the price it was bought at the moment, but still, it would have been $40,000 at wholesale at least, enough to free up capital to spend elsewhere or pocket. I know this is common practice in the industry. A lot of companies want you to sign up a non-compete or a non-disclosure. You leave under unfavorable conditions and you get smeared, or they try to pin a missing item on you. Story 11. Sears pushed and encouraged to sign you up for things without the customer's consent. Phone number and email is all we need to sign you up for Shop Your Way rewards. With or without your consent, we will do it. DM tells managers to tell us to do it because it has worked so well in other stores to keep numbers up. Wells Fargo. All around shady. Straight up lie to people to get them over to a banker to open up checking accounts by telling them our policies are changing and they have to do this. Making sure they have every single product, whether it will actually benefit you or not. We will not give up until you have them all. One time, a blind lady came up to my window with 3 separate checking accounts under her name, and she didn't even know why she had them. Turns out a banker had opened them all up for her to meet quota. So once I quit WF, I moved all of my accounts elsewhere. Story 12. Ooh boy, I worked in a major rental tuxedo store, and let me tell you, there is no bigger scam that everyone buys into at least once in their life than renting a tuxedo. Yeah, we've colored in black collars with Sharpies and burned lapels to make them stop fraying minutes before it goes out the door. No, your jacket was not dry cleaned, and yes, your vest does appear to have a gravy stain on it because it's been Febrezed 10,000 times, but rarely washed. These things only happen in May, though. Yes, my favorite, that is someone's neck grime just visible around your collar. And no, it will not come out even if it is dry cleaned till next Tuesday. We found wasps' nests in a few of our tuxes, probably from some wasp-ridden corner of the warehouse too. Yes, we made your pocket handkerchief out of cut-up ties. Yeah, there's a rotting pile of garbage at the loading dock where the dry cleaning gets left. Oh, your rental was $200? Well, we bought that jacket and pants from the manufacturer for $95 total, but you don't need to know that. Your tux is also an identical fit and material to the non-name brands, but you're an idiot and don't realize that rental goods manufacturing happens on one scale. Big! One style is manufactured and then rebranded by Vera Wang, Jean Eve, Oscar de la Renta, Ralph Lauren, etc. Oh, your rental was only $89.95? That's because the tux was purchased in 1995, older than some kids going to the prom. Story 13. I worked for a gelato shop that made us dig through the so-called recycling bins to fish out used plastic cups and spoons to wash and give to new customers. Even if the spoons had bite marks from other customers and were coated in chewing gum, we were told to wash them up and only throw them out if they were really unpresentable, because these things are expensive. Furthermore, all the other stuff in the recycling bin that people so good-heartedly placed there, yeah, all of it got thrown in the dumpster. Customers ate it up and told us regularly how glad they were that we are a green business who cares about the environment enough to recycle. It didn't take long before I just couldn't keep doing this with a clean conscience, and I turned them in to the health inspectors, who were absolutely horrified that this was happening. About 2 months later, I got laid off and the business closed its filthy doors forever. Story 14. Used to sell cars at a major dealership. The unofficial sales contest was to see how much over MSRP they could sell the car for by confusing the customer on the price with payments, financing, manipulation of trade value, and sometimes outright fraud, like promising manufacturer rebates then not applying them. The winner for the 2 months I was there was over by $10K, selling a car that should have been $20K for over $30K. The sad part is the customer might never even know because they still got the payment they wanted. Please do yourselves a favor and don't shop solely based on payments. And if you are financing, then make sure you are aware what the final selling price of the car is. There is a major difference between $400 a month at 60 months at 0 interest and $400 per month at 84 months at 0.9%. Story 15. After graduation, one of my roommates from undergrad went on to the University of Texas at Austin to do a master's degree in advertising. At first, he was super excited because the program there at UT was the best of its kind in the country, and he really liked Austin. However, by the end of it, he had totally changed his outlook on advertising and actually ended up going into a different industry. Apparently, his last semester there, the students in his program had to do an internship with a real company and help them come up with an advertising campaign. One of his friends in the program was really excited because he had gotten his internship with Jack Daniels, the whiskey producers. However, their view on advertising was completely shattered when his bosses at Jack Daniels literally told the guy to go to AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, meetings and figure out what they would have to do to get those people drinking again. Story 16. I used to work at a mall kiosk selling straighteners, curlers, hair extensions, and other hair products. I was basically one of those annoying sales ladies who had to approach people walking by and try to get them to sit down to try the products. If you enjoy scamming people, it's the perfect job. Where to begin? First of all, everything has a maximum and a minimum price. For example, we tried to push our straighteners out for $200. The minimum price we could sell them for was $100, giving us all sorts of negotiating room to make up BS sales that end today in order to throw on free products if the customer was dumb enough to buy the straightener for $200. So throwing in a free straightener is really just selling them both for $100. On Amazon, you can get these straighteners and curlers for $30. Hair serum I had to sell for $75 was only $10 online. They aren't bad products, just don't ever buy from a mall kiosk. Once I did the research and found out you can buy the products way cheaper online, I put in my 2 weeks. Other issues. We weren't actually allowed to approach people, and I was once threatened with a $250 fine by the mall manager. I was completely unaware of that rule, and my manager just told me to be more careful, as if I know what all the mall's administration staff looks like. Also, all the demonstrations are BS. Like I said, the products aren't bad, but they're made to look a whole lot better. I guess that's most retail outfits, though. I was told by my manager to tell customers that all our products were from Italy, but when we restocked the shelves with a new shipment, it was my job to take all the Made in China stickers off the boxes. We were also told to tell customers that they could exchange the product at any time, but when they came with any returns, we would nail them with a $30 exchange fee for no real reason. We would sell VIP passes or give them for free to close a sale on another product that would allow the customer to come get their hair done for free at the kiosk. When customers would come for their VIP treatment, most of my coworkers and the manager would make up some BS reason as to why they couldn't do their hair at the time. We can't style your hair if it's wet. You actually need to call in advance for an appointment, etc. I would gladly do people's hair just to get out of having to be that annoying sales lady for a little while.